Hey beautiful people, welcome to Sickle and Shine. I'm marieckofi and welcome back everybody. Yes, this is our third video. I cannot believe I'm actually doing this. Yes, exciting, yay! You see, I've always wanted to do a YouTube, but I've never had the time to sit down and put some thought into it. But I think it's always the right time to start something exciting. So I'm glad. Thank you for all those who have encouraged me, and for those who are new here, please welcome. This is a very, very friendly place. We just like it cool like that. Please subscribe and like and share and comment. And if there's anything that you want me to talk about on this space, please feel free. Yes, I will dive right into it. You see, on this episode, I promised that we were going to be talking about me transitioning into secondary and high school. You see, I went into secondary school in the 90s, and in Cameroon, that is. And boy, wasn't it exciting. I became independent. For those who went to boarding school in Cameroon, I'm sure you know what that means. I mean, it was a really good moment in my life. I had my own things, and I had my own bed. I had my own chocolate. I had my own mattress. I had my own cornflakes. I had my own sugar. I had my own Gary, if you know what I mean. It was lovely. It was a really good time. You see, though it was really exciting, I was worried. I was quite worried and scared because, you see, growing up, I had always been prompted by my parents or my siblings to either waking up from bed or taking my medication. So having to live on my own in a boarding school was a big problem for me, though I didn't say it out because I was excited. I didn't want anything to stop that excitement. I was quite worried about that. You see, being in boarding school, I had to live by a schedule. Everything was timed. You see, waking up, I had to wake up with a bell, and everything had to be programmed. And for some reason, that morning wake-up bell always came at a moment where sleep was at its best. And it was so annoying, so annoying. So after a few months in secondary school, I started struggling. I struggled with washing my clothes, especially looking after myself. I struggled with washing my underwear and a lot of all the other tasks that I needed to do for myself. And this was even more difficult with the fact that I always had swollen joints for some reason. I was always in some sort of pain and my joints were always swollen, but I was ashamed to tell my friends. I didn't want to ask for help from my friends because I didn't want to be judged. Like I was judged quite a lot in primary school. I wanted to try and live up to it, but it was quite challenging, and it was only a matter of time before I couldn't do that anymore. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep this any longer. It was only a matter of time, like I said, before it caught up with me. So one morning I wake up with the worst pain I had ever had, excruciatingly painful aches all over my body, from my limbs, my hands, my legs, my chest was on fire. I was in so much pain, and this pain was a sickle cell crisis, and I was so scared. I was so scared, so much so that I couldn't even explain what was going on with me, and my friends were really, really worried and anxious. And because I couldn't explain what was happening to me, there was this commotion everywhere that something's happening to Marie Claire, and I felt really embarrassed about that. And luckily I had some of my friends that had come from primary school who understood the situation, and very kindly one of my friends, bless her, Vivian, her name, carried me on her back and from the dormitory and took me into the main block. And this was a very embarrassing moment because obviously the main block is where everybody is, and you have all the boys and the girls and everyone, especially the boys. I was so embarrassed. I didn't want them to see me in such a vulnerable state, but I had no choice. So Vivian took me to the main block, and I was looked after. I had to wait because obviously there wasn't a system where we will go into a nursing room or something like that. So I stayed for about an hour in so much pain, and I think the principal had to call my parents, and within about 40 minutes or so my dad came and took me to the hospital. So that was my very first experience of sickle cell crisis at school, and it was so embarrassing. You see, I was very lucky to have some wonderful friends at school. I stuck to the ones who understood me, who were willing to learn my situation and accepted me for who I was. And this is something that I want to really point out for those, who were going through sickle cell challenges, and you find yourself in situations like this, in boarding school, in day school, in any kind of setting whatsoever. Find that person who understands you in your moments of vulnerability. There will be somebody who will take you for who you are. I had some really, really wonderful friends, I would tell you that. Every time I had to fall sick and go into hospital, I would come back and, my friends would, copy my notes and, give them to me when I come back. And of course, I always had to work twice as hard, just so I can catch up. I did not want to be left behind. And this is something that you will find that it resonates with us. It's given because of our situation and our challenges. You find yourself working twice as hard just because you want to meet up. And that is something that I had always done, working twice as hard because I will not be left behind. Yes, I had that resilience, and I'm glad I had it because it kept pushing me. I did not want my peers to go ahead and leave me behind like it happened in primary school. So I always used to try my best. I had understood the importance of taking my medication, so I was always keeping on top of it, you see. I was always taking my water bottle with me, always drinking water. I remember, my friends always used to ask me, what's that bottle? I had my medication in a small bottle with me all the time. You would never see me without this bottle. And I always had it with me. So this is something that's very important. As a teenager, of course, you have other things that, matter more to you. But, I realized that for me to be able to catch up and be with my friends and and be in school especially, I had to stay on top of things. I did struggle when I started, but I realized that I have to be in charge of my health. So I took matters into my own hands and stayed on top of it, drinking as much water as I possibly could, always staying on top of my medications because I didn't have my parents, of course, to remind me to take it. And this is very important. Please keep and stay on top of your medication, on top of your fluids, because, these are the things that will keep you going. I had to sit my final exams called the GCE O-levels, or what we call in the UK GCSE. I wasn't able to put in the work that I had to. And because of this, I did so poorly in my exams. I did pass, yes, I did, but with very poor result. But boy, I celebrated. I was the most happiest person ever. My parents, my family gave me the best party ever because I made it. And this is what's very important to point out. Even with all your challenges, celebrate every moment that you can. It didn't matter to me that I only had 5 GCE O levels with I think all C's and 1 A in English, but I was the most happiest. I celebrated more than anyone that had 11 A's or what you can call the best grades. I was the happiest person. So it was time for me to get into high school, and of course it was exciting, but unfortunately, because I had such poor grades in secondary school, I didn't get to go to my preferred high school of choice. I had my peers who had gone into the nicer schools, because they had good grades, but unfortunately, I had to go with the one that had accepted me with my grades. So I didn't mind it. What mattered to me was that I'd passed and I was going forward, So I got admitted into a high school in Kumba. And for those who live in Cameroon, you know where that is, one of the high schools in Kumba. And it was an exciting moment. I mean, I was a grown woman. I was looking forward to that new experience. I was quite conscious. Boys had started looking at me. I was quite, careful about the way I carry myself, about the way I looked. So, going into a high school, it was a very mixed feeling, if you know what I mean. I was quite conscious about my sickle cell challenges because this was a different environment to secondary school. I'd heard so many things about it, and unfortunately I couldn't go into high school at the same time as everyone else, because I was in hospital. I stayed in hospital for about 3 weeks when school had started. So because of this, I arrived late. And because I arrived late, there is this thing that they always did. It was like a tradition. For those who came in late, they had to be welcomed. And that welcome was not quite appealing, if I can put it mildly. So it was such an experience that, I did not like. And because it was my first day, I couldn't explain. Well, I should have, in all honesty. I should have explained my situation and my challenges, So I was treated in not so nicely, if I can put it that way. I'm trying so hard not to, But anyhow, yes, it wasn't a good experience. So it was very harsh, and unfortunately, I took ill as a result, and the principal wasn't happy about this. Most of the things that happen, of course they know, but that nobody bothers. But I felt very ill as a result of that treatment, and my parents had to be called in. My dad came and picked me up and took me to the hospital. So the very next day of me getting into school, I had to go back home because I was not very well. But I managed to come back anyway, and life went on. But you see, I had a problem in school. Some of my peers found it really difficult to understand me, and they got really frustrated, and because of this frustration, I didn't get to have too many friends. The only people I stuck with were the ones that had come. I came from secondary school with some of my friends, my other friends. So I just stuck with them because quite a number of people got really frustrated that I wasn't as proactive as some of the other, people. Everyone was, living the life, living the best life in high school, and people were having boyfriends left and right. And, I was being very, very retracted in that sense because I didn't want to get embarrassed in front of anybody with a crisis. A lot of these things were new to me, and I'd never had a boyfriend before, and I was having people approaching me and wanting to make friends with me, but I was not welcoming that friendship because, of course, I did not know how to explain my challenges, and this is something that is very sensitive and very important. And we will talk more about sickle cell and relationship in later videos. I have quite a lot to talk about, in this subject. But you see, what I just wanted to point out was that, you will find that you will have to be explaining yourself quite a lot to a lot of other people who don't understand you, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. When I found that comfort in telling people who I was very happy in myself. For the boys that came along, I told them the challenges. And for those who cared about you, stayed. And for those who didn't, they moved on. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. So be comfortable in who you are. As long as you're happy with yourself, that's all that matters. So my time in high school was a bit of a mixed one. So because where my high school was quite hot, so I was constantly sick, but my parents had made this arrangement. There was this doctor, Dr. Difochu, I would never forget him, that used to live in Kumba, and he for some reason he had put together everything that was needed for me when I had a crisis. So every time I took ill, the principal would just call him and he'll come and pick me up and take me to his house instead of taking me to the hospital. He had everything in place to support me. And obviously I managed the best I could, but because I was constantly ill, I was constantly out of school, and I wasn't performing as well as I should have. Of course, I didn't make it, which was the story of my life. I didn't make it to the next class, so I was expelled due to poor performance in my exams. But I didn't mind it at all. I went home. I knew that, my parents were not going to be upset with me because I was telling them about my challenges. So because I wasn't able to go into upper Sith to do my A levels, but of course I didn't mind it, and my parents didn't mind it either, but I knew I was going to do my A levels somehow. So I said to my parents, I wanted to do my A levels, but I'm not going to go back into boarding school. So I enrolled into a day school, but I only lasted a term because I struggled. Having spent most of my life in boarding school, I really struggled with the way the system was running in the day school. I mean, teachers were just coming the way they liked, and I just couldn't cope, So I went back home and said to my dad, you see, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do it my way. So I told my dad that I was going to I was going to attend all the private classes, that were being offered in the town, and my dad will give me so much money to go and pay and attend all these classes. So I would look for all these teachers that were giving all these classes for those who wanted to write the A-level exams. So I was attending from one class to the other. All the subjects that I wanted to do, I was paying extra to do this, and it was quite tough, but I was resilient. And I think this is the thing that had always kept me going. I knew at the back of my mind that I was going to make it no matter my challenges. And I'm telling you that, if you think that you will make it, yes, of course you will. I had it at the back of my mind that no matter what, I was going to sit my A-level exams and I was going to pass it. Good grades or not, I was going to pass it. So I attended all the extra classes that I could. My parents supported me the best they could. My mom and dad, would give me all the money that they could. And I would pay for all these lessons. And it was tough. I had to spend a lot of sleepless nights, of course, because I had to do a lot of this work myself. But I finally made it. When the result came out, I passed. I had 2 papers, and that's all that mattered, Even though I couldn't go into the prestigious university at that time, I had my A-level results, and that's all that mattered to me. I went into some professional college back then, and it was all that I needed. I knew that education was quite a challenge for me, and this is something that has always been a challenge throughout my life, but for some reason I was always getting there at the end, one step at a time I took. And I wanted to point out very importantly too that, living with sickle cell, it can be quite tough, especially when it comes to our education. I have come across so many people that due to, one sickle cell complication to the other, they have not been able to do so well at school. And as a result, they've not been able to have a setting standard of life. But I just want to tell you that, you just do what you can. There is no race. Do what you can and what you're comfortable with. You're not competing with anybody whatsoever. I wasn't competing with anyone. I was taking it at my own pace. Yes, I was sad that some of my peers had better grades, but I knew that I was special. I was special. I was comfortable where I was. I worked as hard as I could, and I got the results that I put in. So there's nothing wrong with you having poor grades. Even if you fail, there's nothing wrong with doing it again. So please do not beat yourself over this, because, you only have one life. As I always tell my friends, you only have one life. No matter the challenges, just keep doing the best you can. You will forever live with sickle cell, and, you just have to find ways around it to make the most of your life. So even with my very poor grades at A levels, I managed to get admission into a college in London. So please join me next time as I talk about moving to the UK, leaving my family behind, some of the challenges I faced as an immigrant and someone living with sickle cell disease in London in the UK. Please subscribe, like, share and comment, and feel free to give me some tips, how you're coping. And like I said before, on this space, we talk about everything sickle. And of course, there will be more exciting stuff coming on later. Thank you for watching. See you next time.